Thank you for tuning in. Welcome to One L of a Fall, Law and Pandemic. This is episode 2. So without further ado, we're going to get right into my experience as a quick recap within the summer legislation class. So mind you, last episode I was talking about how we came in, getting the feel for the material, reading pages, 30 pages a day, almost. Now this comes to when now you're looking at how you're actually going to prepare towards the end of the class, how you're going to prepare for the finals, and what questions you need to ask, etc. So now, my biggest thing for me was that I love to ask questions. So during our class, I'll be one of the main ones that have the professor stop. Can you explain this with a few others? Because some people just know the material better that wouldn't ask questions, and then you got people who are just actually shy because they don't want to seem like they should they don't want to seem as if they would be wrong with trying to understand something that others may understand. So ask questions if you need to. At the end of the day, it's only going to benefit you and those who didn't know that particular question as well. So an example by my experience, when I decide to ask questions, it pretty much opens up an icebreaker for other students to be like, hey, I also had a question about this, or I also had a question about this. And then you kind of see the momentum moving forward with people becoming more comfortable with asking those type of questions of curiosity because it was brand new material to us. So nobody should be shy to see how they should understand something. And we also had study groups that we used to prepare for the morning of. So if you have the chance to do that, take the time to get a study group going for those to help you understand different material, and you can also help others see it from a different perspective as well. So we'll take the time out 30 minutes before class as a quick review to go over the material that we're supposed to in class. And sometimes it may happen, it may not, but sometimes during those reviews, everybody might be on the same page with how it should be understood. And then once you get in class, the professor just completely trumps everything that you thought you understood, and you're like, whoa, like, let me go ahead and take a step back and figure out what's the best approach within these review sessions moving forward, and it helps you that much more better. So that was a biggie for us, was having those study groups to make sure understand we was able to bounce ideas off the walls towards one another. So as we was diving in, going into the end of the class, that's when you start asking questions about what to prepare for in the finals. And this is all our first finals. Everybody gets a horror story on how you can completely just botch a final exam and just get the wrong grade, or you hear the myths about, oh yeah, your final exam is worth your whole grade for that whole class. And for the most part it is, but at the same time, if you know and you understand the material how it should, you may not get an A. Everybody is not meant to get an A. But if you put in that much more effort to accomplish the goal of getting an A, you wouldn't have to worry about what you're actually or how you're actually going to do on the exam. And that was my approach, is that I'm going to make sure that I work as if I'm trying to be on the top of the class. But if it didn't happen, it wasn't the end of the world for me. So when we get into those review sessions with the professor, hey, what do I need to understand? What doctrines do I need to look at? What is this material that is going to be on there, and how it relates to other material to where it can correlate with one another, where your argument makes that much more sense. And we had to make pretty much 6 or 7 different arguments about like different types of theories of how to approach an argument for legislation. And so we was able to pretty much draw an outline and draw a skeleton to where you would structure that argument how you need to, but everybody would fill in the gaps that best serves them on their approach to the final exams. So the professor was able to definitely give us that much more insight on how we should structure that. And don't be afraid to send emails to follow up if you need further explanation, because that's what they're there for, especially with the tuition you pay. If you pay $35,000 a semester for tuition, that goes towards their check. And if it goes towards their check, they need to answer questions because that's how they get paid. So don't be shy to reach out. So now you get into reading and structuring study groups for the final exam with your peers. And we pretty much had, like, I would say, a phenomenal group of individuals who was able to come together and study. And we was going to each other's houses we was actually able to find a way to figure out what was the best outline approach. And the school did a phenomenal job with providing upperclassmen to give us tips as well. So they would schedule Zoom sessions for those who performed well within the same courses, and they would tell us how they approach something. So if your school has something like that as well, make sure you attend, make sure you write things down, annotate what you need to, because you're going to perform that much more better. And also, don't be afraid to utilize the resources outside of just what you may think or may not think could work for you. If it says something that resembles how you might think something should be, reach out to them. For me, it was important that I reached out to our research and writing resources because I really wanted to know how to better read case briefs. I really wanted to know how to read legal material in the way to where if I went through something, I can understand it. We all went through that phase, or I still go through that phase of reading a paragraph, reading a page, blanking out, and then trying to understand what did I just read, and now I got to read it again. I don't like backtracking. I'm pretty sure those who like to progress as well or grow don't like backtracking, but sometimes it may happen. But it's a better way to understand how you should go about those measures if you're doing what you need to in order to get better. Now, you once you utilize those resources, you kind of get a sense of how to go about something in a more structural manner. And once you approach those study groups within your peers, y'all all bring something new and diverse to the table that can help you understand something that much more better than you understood it before y'all even got into the study group. So for me, it was important that I understood things how others may understood it for the simple fact that it could become relevant if need be if the exam question presents itself in that manner. Because I can have my own idea within an argument, but that argument may not go how it needs to if that's not the calling or the cause of the question, which is what the professors emphasize on. They don't want to hear how optimistic you can be, more so than how you can actually apply that rule to that circumstances. And that's what's key. That's what gets you your points on your exam. And that's what needs to be focused on when you're in those study groups. Don't find study groups with your best friends if they're not going to do nothing but talk about what season you're on in Netflix or whatever the case may be. Find those friends that you know is going to stay grounded, put the pressure on you. That way you can put the pressure on them and becomes a natural competition. And it's healthy. It helps both of y'all become better at the end of the day. And my approach is that you use it as a typical work day. So a typical work day, you would have, let's just say 8 hours working a shift. Just apply those same rules to how you would prepare for the final exam. For me, personally speaking, there's no need to actually go stay up to 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to retain material, because it's not based on how much you can retain. It's based on how much you know of that material and how you can apply it with the outlines that you have constructed for yourself to better prepare for that final exam. So your key is your outlines, not so much how much you retain in order to not look at your outlines. That's what your outlines are there for. And that's how I took my approach. I was able to take breaks in between the hour or every 2 hours, have regular lunch, do it again in the evening, and then take another, break or end my day a little bit, and then just come back before bed and kind of review the material, what I needed or what I was unsure of. And each time I go through like a section or a chapter. However, if I didn't understand something, that's when I reach out to the professor again before final exams actually come up, before it's the actual day, before it's time to take the final exams. And it pretty much worked out in my favor because I did actually way better than I thought I was actually going to do, because I can tell you right now, it's a 3-hour test. It was 3 exams, and it may sound like a lot of time, but once you get a question and you have to apply certain material to that question, it could take longer than what you think, because you want to make sure you hit all those points so that way you're not leaving points on the table for you to have a lower grade, because it could reduce it by a letter that much more quickly. So that was pretty much my experience with legislation. I was able to accomplish something to where it helps me better prepare coming into the fall. I understood the material way better than I did coming in. I was able to know what resources to use, and also help others who was coming in as well. So with the knowledge that you accumulate while coming to law school, going to your summer legislation class and actually passing, the school was able to create a Facebook admitted student page for the class of 2023, which all the incoming students would be a member, and you can relay certain information where people who may not know something was able to better understand something, or now is aware of something that they didn't know before. And I was able to use that Facebook page to tell others, hey, if you're coming in, think about this, think about that. So if you ain't got an email from a certain dean, check from the school. See how you can get your email account set up if it was already supposed to be set up. And a lot of people, it was able to help a lot of people come in and make their transition that much more easier because they didn't know how to reach out or they didn't know what to think of at the time. And if you know the knowledge in order to pass on, pass that knowledge because it'll help somebody else not have to go through the troubles that you may have had to go through. And they'll appreciate it at the end of the day, or at least they appreciated my efforts to help them because it's not as hard as it could have been or is that much less of a challenge because it's still a challenge at the end of the day. So once you get into the rhythm of preparing for law school, you get your schedule, you're getting all these numerous of emails on what you should do next, these trainings. If we got COVID trainings, you get your checklist. It could seem overwhelming. You're like, I'm never going to get through this. But just hang in there because the worst is yet to come, but for the better. So when we got our schedules, they split it up by 6 sections. It's usually the traditional method is by 2, but because of procedures that had to take place because of COVID, they split it up into 6 sections to still practice social distancing and to keep everybody safe for those who still want to take face-to-face classes. That way we was better able to meet each other and communicate about the things that needed to be done and create that much more of a relationship. So when we did meet up with each other, it didn't seem awkward. And you'll have something to go off of to create an icebreaker from my experience. So we was able to actually meet up before law school started, and it was a phenomenal experience. We met up at the Fassler Hall downtown, had a wonderful time, practiced social distancing measures, and had our mask on, things of that nature. So it was nothing out of the norm that would cause others to be concerned about due to COVID for those who were comfortable coming to meet others in a widespread environment. And we was able to establish a good time, met a few peers there, and it was a great turnout for Section 5 for us to actually build that camaraderie to where we know how we was going to approach the semester and go into our first few weeks of classes. And I can tell you right now, from personal experience, when I was preparing for the fall, I wanted to get the syllabus as fast as I could. I wanted to understand what needed to be read as fast as I could. They're going to talk to you about case briefing and how to approach each class. And I think that's when it comes time to actually reach out to some of the upperclassmen that you probably have already met or encountered to where they can help you prepare for different types of courses. Like contract will be prepared differently for CivPro. CivPro will be prepared differently for torts. And then also finding those students who had the same teachers as well, because they'll be able to give you a blueprint of what actually needs to be done because they've been there before. Why would I start new on learning everything when I can already develop and gain the insight from others who have already experienced it? That way, by me going through this new experience, I already established a baseline on how to approach it. So that's key. Always find somebody who has done it before you so you can know what you're getting yourself into from a general standpoint, and you'll have a better perception on how to go about the things you need to moving forward. Now, coming into your first week of your law classes, it can be tricky because all professors don't approach it the same. For some professors, they want to come out the gate, they want to yell at you, they want to make sure you understand that they are not there to be your friend, they are there to be your professor. You have professors who actually bring a little humor to the courses, which makes it that much more bearable. And that was my contracts class because if anything, my weakest course is contracts. It's not to say that I dislike it or like it. It's just something that I have the most struggle with understanding. But my professor, he's amazing because he brings that humorous approach in order for us to get to understand the material and not have to worry about being in a frantic mind state trying to understand the material based on how he actually teaches it. So that's the utmost importance in having a professor who can actually teach the material to make it seem it's that much more easier when you're understanding it, more so than you're already struggling with it on your own trying to prepare for class. So that's pretty much the biggest takeaway with coming into your first weeks of class. And also open up, get to understand your peers, get to know them. Meet and greet is the biggest thing that you actually do. You don't have to be best friends with everybody, but you do want to have a sense of understanding of who to approach and what times of needs if something needed to be done, because everybody's going to go in their own different direction. But that's not to say you're not going to be in that path or in that direction one day where you may have to have them help you to do something that you need to do, and vice versa. Be approachable, be direct, be sensible, and be reasonable, because those are the key traits that's going to help you be that much more of a better individual than just trying to go through law school in a shark tank trying to be the utmost competitor and trying to make everybody else look bad. And that's from my logic from when I was approaching my first weeks of class, because it proved vital in order to meet those that was able to help me during the time I needed to approach them. And this will also be the time to kind of look into the student organizations that you may be interested in, reaching out to those student organizations, what's their focus, getting involved, because it may not necessarily be a student organization, but if you hear about something that catches your interest, reach out to them, because even if it's not your main agenda to join that organization, they could probably help you go on the best path in order to figure out what's best for you and your interests as you're going through law school. And professors and the administration will do that as well. So reach out to the law student services at your campus, because they would definitely tell you this is how you can go about things. If this is what you're interested in, they can already give you a surface level path on how you should be taking different steps in order to move forward if this is your actual goal and what you're trying to do. So make sure you capitalize on that. It's important that you have a plan and not just freelance through law school, especially during the times you don't even really understand that much. So we'll get more into that within the next episode. This is DJ. Thank you for tuning in to One Hell of a Fall, Law and Pandemic. Stay tuned.